Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to the annual exhibition of the Ayrshire Federation. Now, there are some 10 clubs that form the Federation. 8 of them, or 9 of them, I'm not sure, are competing tonight, and the competition is generally a pretty close-run thing, but there are always a good number of excellent pictures. So I hope you enjoy it tonight. Now, tonight we're competing for this lovely trophy here. If you've never seen this before, do come up and have a good look at it, because it only appears now and again. If you don't see it tonight, it's away for another 12 months, and it certainly is a lovely trophy, and it would look very nice on your Prezzy's sideboard, so the best of luck. Now, in the unlikely event that we have to vacate the premises, tell you where the exits are. One behind you, another one behind you, and I think they take you out to the car park, or out the way you came, through the foyer, out to the main front of the church. But we're on the ground floor, so nobody should break their leg falling downstairs. Right, the competition tonight has been organised by Irvine Camera Club. They are the host club for this year. So it only remains for me, I don't need to say it anymore, it only remains for me to hand you over to Clive Watkins of Irvine Camera Club, and he will fill you in as to how the evening is going to pan out, and he will also introduce the judge. So, Clive? Yeah. Are you?
Thank you, Roy, for that introduction. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see so many people turned out to the inter-club competition this year. We must admit, in Irvine Camera Club, we were a little bit concerned that because we put it in the half-term holiday in October, that we might have less numbers than usual, but I think it's proved to be an unfounded fear, that, because we've got a good turnout tonight. So thank you for coming along. The format of this evening is that we will do the monochrome prints, followed by the colour prints. The judge will talk to the print on the light stand here, but I'm aware that it's a big hall and not everybody can see clearly the pictures on the light stand, so we're also projecting digital versions of the images onto the screen in front of you. The judge will talk about the print quality, though, and the print that he's judged. There may be discrepancies sometimes with the projected image and even just the lighting and the way that it works on a projected image. Bear in mind that Ken has judged the print that you'll be seeing on the light box, and it might not necessarily hang together with what you're seeing on the projection. However, having said that, at least everybody gets an idea of what's been talked about. That should take us through to around about 8:30, where we will break and have some refreshments, and also you'll have all bought raffle tickets when you came in through the door. What's happening in the next few minutes is our colleagues at the front there are through putting the numbers onto the prizes, so we won't have to stand and call out the raffle. You'll just go through and see whether your ticket matches something that's been put on a prize, pick up your prize and grab something to eat, have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and then you can return to your seat for the second half. We'll aim to try and start again around about 9:10, so you've got plenty of time to socialise, have a bite to eat, and get something to drink at half time. And then we'll move on to the projected images, which are, of course, the digital image files that you've entered, and they'll just solely come up on the big screen there, and the judge will talk to those and judge those. Around about 9:40, we'll collate all the scores, and we'll announce the winners. And then we'll see who gets that lovely trophy that Roy was talking about. So, yes, and then we'll close for the evening after that. So it only remains for me now to introduce our judge for this evening. We're extremely lucky to have Ken Lindsay joining us this evening to judge the Inter-Ayrshire. Ken has been a keen photographer for a long time, even experimenting with colour printing, I think it was slide printing, Ectaflex colour printing back in the 1980s. But it was really only when he joined Eastwood Photographic Society, in the late 90s, that he really got the photography bug. I think that's fair to say. And then really, I think, after he retired, is when he really took off in his photographic career, and boy, did he take off. Ken has been awarded a couple of certificates or recognitions, distinctions. One, the MPAGB, which is the Master of the Photographic Alliance of Great Britain. That in itself is a huge achievement and requires a lot of time and effort and no doubt a certain amount of skill. So very difficult to get and clearly something that's been well rewarded. But bigger than that, Ken has also got the Fédération Internationale de l'Art Photographique, which is an international award that you can only get by getting basically hundreds of acceptances into international salons. So Ken is a world-renowned amateur photographer and has been recognised as such. So I think we're in really good hands this evening with Ken judging our images. So really, I think these days Ken is also concentrating on landscapes, travel, people, and also wildlife. So there's really nothing that this man can't do. So I think with the breadth of subjects we've got tonight in the competition, we've got somebody who can recognise the skill involved in producing these images. So I'm looking forward to some really good comments from Ken this evening. And with that, it's really just up to me to hand over to Ken for the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clive. Maybe I should try and put this a bit higher. And there's a danger that I'll be turning round and talking to the print, so maybe we should just bring it over to this.
Be a bit careful because it's gaffer tape down.
So if you can't hear me, just let me know. Speak up, shout. So it was a pleasure looking at the prints, the colour prints and mono prints and the projected images before I came here. And of course these images and prints are the best images of club photography, being an inter-club competition. And when I'm given prints or images to judge, what I do is I start off by ranking them, and having done that, I then apply scores ranging from 20 and in tonight's case down to 14 or 15. So it means that images or prints that have scored top marks in clubs in some cases may only be getting 14 or 15 marks, but that's just because they're up against the standard. Other prints of very high standard. So you just have to bear with me if I'm giving some prints low marks. And finally, I should say, is judging any photographic competition, it's always subjective. It's just my opinion, which may differ from yours, but tonight you're stuck with me. So, right, we'll make a start. So the first print, we're doing monochrome initially, and the first print is Osprey Breakfast. And this is a really good monochrome print. Great print to start with. You see the osprey swooping down to a fish. The fish doesn't look too healthy, I have to say. It looks as though the fish may have been there for some time. But nice, filling the frame. Everything is sharp all around the wings and body and head. Just losing it a little bit of detail in the tail, but that doesn't really bother me. Great print, full of detail, and this scores 20 points. So now we have Zion Tree, and this print presumably taken in Zion National Park in the States. I like the print. You've got this tree, very interesting tree, nicely positioned, good composition. You've got this interesting rock detail round the base. You've got some more trees on the right-hand corner, and you've got sky. Now the sky may have been overworked just a little, but there's certainly lots of detail, and certainly up in the projected image it looks good, but perhaps just a little overworked. With the light behind the tree, helping to bring the eye in towards the tree. The trees on the right side are converging in. With any wide-angle lens, when you tilt the camera up, you get convergence, and the trees are tilting in a bit. So they could perhaps have been corrected, but that doesn't really bother me too much. So I liked this print, and this scored 17 points. Now this is called Craigneal Castle. Not a castle I know, but presumably it's somewhere fairly local. I'm just seeing a bit of colour. There seems to be a sort of sepia tone on the image there, and it's less sepia tone down there, whereas in the print the colour's fairly uniform. But you have the castle on the left-hand side, you have a hill in the distance, and you have a little white house. Perhaps it's probably a farmhouse. Perhaps a little unfortunate, because that being white, it does tend to catch your eye, and the author really naming the title of the print as Craigneal Castle. This is presumably the main subject of the image. And again, a little unfortunate, because not only is the castle towards the left of the image, the bright part of the castle just takes your eye even further to the left. So I think that the composition is not ideal. And I just wonder if the author could have moved round. I like having the hill. It'd be nice just positioning the castle in a better relationship to the hill. You could hide the farmhouse by moving around to the left, if that's possible. It may not be. But then it may well be that the castle would be directly under the hill, whereas it would be better positioned to the side of the hill. So I think it's a composition that lets us down a little, and the bright part of the castle well over to the left side. So Craigneal Castle gets 15 points. Now this is called Prize Winners. You've got your two girls with the rosettes, obviously having gained some recent success with their horse or pony. Nice, straightforward image, no distractions round about, and that's good. Despite winning the rosette, the expression, the face of the child in front is not too happy, but that's not really a problem. What is a problem is that when you're looking closely, you may not see it on the projected image, but the first girl is not sharp. The second girl and the horse, all sharp, and that's fine. But unfortunately, the depth of focus has not been sufficient just to include the first girl. So that falls down from that point. And this print also scores 15 points. And this print is called Finiston Waterfront. So you've got the Clydeport crane and the banks of the Clyde, and you've got the Squinty Bridge, and nice reflections. It's taken obviously just after dusk. The lights are on in all the buildings, and the sky's not too dark. Now, looking at the print is a bit darker than what you're seeing in the projected image. But again, although the print is dark, the buildings are well lit. Perhaps I'd have liked to see just a little more differentiation between the crane and the dark sky behind. See, in the projected image, it stands out fairly well. It doesn't stand out quite so well in the print. And the other fairly small point that just lets it down a little is that the right end of the Squinty Bridge is just cut off a little. I'd just have liked to have seen that. In fact, it looks as though it's not cut off there. So the print, bit of adjusting in the framing of the print would make all the difference. But as it was shown and as it was framed in the print, Finiston Waterfront gets 17 points. And this is called Classic Bike Race. Really like this image. You've got the old bike and the rider on the bike, absolutely sharp, but there's still motion in the wheels and in the spokes, blurring of spokes and the wheels so that you get the sense of motion. So I assume that some sort of panning's been carried out to get such detail in the rider and in the bike itself. You can see the face of the rider. In fact, he's even wearing spectacles under his helmet and visor. And so often in these motorbike shots, you have a problem with the background. But here, the background is just black rubber tyres, and that's great. Being a bit picky, there is a little white area here, just at the very top. You can see it up in the projected image there. And a little white area there. It would have been very easy just to clone in a few more tyres at the top and get rid of these little bright areas. And that area could just have been darkened down, and that would have just helped the rider just to stand out. It would prevent your eye being taken up into the top part of the image. But nevertheless, a very good image, and Classic Bike Race got 19 points. This is called Brays Nose. An interesting face, beard, sharp, against an appropriate background. When I say appropriate, meaning he's the sort of character that you might expect to be standing against a brick background. But the background is just rather light. It's a pity that the author didn't darken the background. One main problem of the image is that if you look at print closely, you can maybe even see it on the projected image. The figure has obviously been cut out, and there's really no attempt to try and it's a straight edge round his beard. Perhaps not, you maybe can't see it in the projected image, but it's very clear in the print that the figure has been put in, or the background has been changed. And if you're going to change the background, then you really would be better to pick a darker background, more sort of this brick colour, so that his face and hat and beard all stands out against the background. Again, the specs are just hanging from the point of his shirt there, and I think it might have been better just to take them out as well, just to stop your eye getting taken down out of the picture at the bottom. So, let down by these points, and Brays Nose gets 14 points. Now this image is called Jacobite Express. It's up in the Glenfinnan Viaduct, and the author's got there just at the right time. He'd been there to get the train crossing the viaduct. And he has included all the smoke, apart from a little bit just cut off at the top. But all the smoke, most of the smoke's included in the frame. I presume in trying to do that, he has left the train and the carriages very central in the image. And the view that he's taken has meant that the loop of the line is fairly compressed. I think I might have preferred going a little higher so the loop would have been opened up a bit more. And I would have tried to avoid having the train and carriages right in the centre of the frame. Now, not quite sure the best way to do that. Either you could be cropping down the right-hand side here, and perhaps along the bottom a little, or else cropping down, cutting off some of the smoke coming out, to do it the other way. But again, I just feel the composition just lets it down a little. It's sharp, It's a good range of tones, but just a little weak in the composition. I think that could have been better. But Jacobite Express still scores 16 points. And this is called Frosted Rings. A well recognised logo on the front of the Audis, it's been lying out overnight in the frost, and the author has just come and taken the shot. It's sharp, you can see a lot of detail, all the little spicules of frost around all the rings. But in the end, it's just a photograph of the rings. And I think at this level, this competition, inter-club competition, you really want to try and get something with just a bit more impact, so that no problems with the image, but just lacking in impact for such a composition. So Frosted Rings gets 15 points. And this is called Southpaw. Now, I'm looking at the print, and I'm seeing a lot more detail in all the fur and the hairs than we're seeing in the projected image. This is a terrific print. I'm not quite sure why his ear in the left's up. Is that someone talking to it in the left? Dogs raise their ear on one side, or is he moving his head and it's just been caught in this position? I don't know. But in the print, all the detail round the face and down round the tie and chest here is all absolutely sharp. The paws, the sharpness is falling away a little round there, but that doesn't really bother me. If anything, it's a little too sharp, maybe been over sharpened round the eyes and just round the mouth area. But lovely print. It's been presented in this in a landscape format.
Don't face the audience with it.
Presented in a landscape format, and I just wonder if it might have been better in a square format or in a portrait format. I'm not too worried about that, but lovely print, and it scores 19 points. And this is called Maritime Freight. You have your freight engine static on the railway line. I don't see any sign of a driver. The window might be open on the left side, but I presume that the train is just sitting there. And I think the author has done remarkably well. He's taken this from a low angle, which just helps to increase the sort of drama of the train. It's been taken with a slow shutter speed, so the clouds and perhaps the wind's been coming towards the author, and the clouds are sort of splayed out. So again, just tending to lead your eye in towards the train. And unfortunate, the bush, it might have been better if the bush wasn't there, but the bush is there, not a huge problem. You've got some lead in from the left with the rail and the clouds helping. So I really think for a subject that's perhaps again lacking interest a bit, I think the author has done the best that he or she could have, and I like the print. Again, this is projecting a little bit lighter than the print. There's just tones maybe a bit better, the range of tones a bit better in the print, and the print gets 17 points. And this is Leeds Arcade. It's a shot of the architecture of the arcade, again with a wide-angle lens, so that you're seeing the whole range of the roof and the You've got lead-in lines from the corridor and from the roof, and all the different structures in the roof, all bringing your eye down to the central point. Unfortunately, there's not really anything, despite all the lead-in, there's nothing very much in that area that you'd want to see. The figures that are more prominent, as you see, are on the right-hand side. And they're looking away from they're looking out of the print to the left, or to the right, should I say. And it may have been better, I think, if you'd subject about that size walking towards you. I think that would just have created a bit more interest. Certainly there's lovely detail in the architecture, and the print gets a reasonable mark because of that, but again, I would just have liked something a bit more to create interest. And Leeds Arcade gets 16 points. And this is called Walking the Dog. And a great title. And you see the character holding the dog in his arms. Why is he holding the dog in his arms? I don't know. But the expression on the dog's face, you know. I think he looks rather terrified. Maybe he's seen the photographer. Is it taken with a long lens? Hard to say. And this character is sharp, and the dog's sharp, and that's fine. We're perhaps losing a little bit of detail, but not bad. The figures round about are just there. They're a bit distracting, and they certainly don't help. This chap here is just a little out of focus, carrying his phone, and this chap even more out of focus. Doesn't really contribute to the story of Walking the Dog. You don't know what the relationship of these characters are to the main subject. So, great title, but I think the image itself is just a little lacking. And Walking the Dog scores 15 points. And this is called Old Sanis. Now, they certainly look old Sanis. The print is different from the projected image. The projected image, there's been blur created round about the periphery of the shoes just to help bring your eye into the shoes, and that's good. But that hasn't been done in the print, so I'm just judging the print. And in the print, you've got bits of distraction coming in from the side. There's bits of grass coming around here, another bit sticking up there. In effect, this is a sort of still life shot, so you've all the time in the world to start tidying things up. And I really don't know why the author left this sole here. Looks like, you know, is it the sole of the Sanis? I don't know. It could be from some other pair of shoes. But I don't think that helps, nor does the bits of grass lying around. So I felt all these things just let the print down. Better to create a bit of blur around it, that would help, but as it's been judged, Old Sanis get 14 points. Now this is called In the Mists of Time. The author here has been trying something a bit different. It's a very grainy print, but you can see that you have your lake or your loch with a sailing yacht in it, and you've got lovely mountains. I just love the way that you have the mountains coming into each side. There's this interesting area in the middle. You have clouds drifting out round the various receding mountains, and you've got a little tree or bush down on the bottom right. The author has then applied a lightning vignette round about the image. So rather than darkening, he has used a lightning, which I'm just not sure that works. But I really do like this area in the middle of the image, and I think the yacht is fairly well positioned as well. So I quite like the composition, not sure about the vignetting. And it took me a while to give this a mark, but in the end it scored 16 points. And this is called Gazing. It's a shot of a pony or a horse, and you've got the eye here, nicely positioned in the thirds. You've got the mane, the forehead here. You've got the mane just losing, getting out of focus. The back, that doesn't really bother me at all. Again, nice tonal range throughout the whole print. The only thing that perhaps is lacking is just a highlight in the eye. I don't see any sign of that at all. It would have been nice just to pick out a highlight. There's a little bright area in the top of the print and the projected image that might have been better just dulling that down, just darkening it down a little, and perhaps this corner here as well, just a little bit bright, and again, darkening would just have helped to bring your eye round towards the centre, the important part, which is the eye of the pony. So I like this image, and Gazing at 17 points. Now this is Misty Belvedere, and I'm looking at the print, and the print is far better than the projected image, because you're losing a lot of detail in the projected image. But the print is off Belvedere, which is a farmhouse in Val d'Orcia, a classic site. But the author has been fortunate in that there's lovely mist which is filling the valley, but it's still allowing you to identify the hilltops, and there's detail in the print which you can't see in the image, but there's rows of cypresses along the top of the hills. You're getting, there's a lovely crossing of the hills, just similar to the print we saw with the yacht. The hills are crossing, and I like that. And you've got recession which separates them. And then, of course, you've got almost a silhouette. There's a little bit of detail in the farmhouse itself, but it's basically a silhouette against a lovely background of receding hills. It's a classic site, but nevertheless, I think this is printed beautifully, and the tones are all there, and this print gets 20 points. Now, this is called Two Trees, and as you see, it's two trees in the snow. Now, what you can't make out is in the print there's a line down here. You can't see it down this area here, which really shows that the trees are on a slope. And in fact, these two trees lie above a small village called Skopje Loka in Slovenia. And I know that because I was standing almost beside the author, close to the author when he took the shot. There was three of us there. So I don't know whether the author or whoever selected the image knew that I'd be judging this, but I've tried to judge it in as unbiased a way as possible. Criticisms, well, it's two trees. I think I might have preferred one tree or three trees, but I think it still works. The second tree in the distance has got a broken branch, and there's a branch, again, another broken branch lying in the ground. I think that could have been perhaps tidied up. I think it just needs a little more. I like the print, and you're getting a little detail in the snow with the print that you're not seeing in the image. but it just falls down, I think, for these small points I've mentioned. And 2 trees gets 18 points. Now this is called Highland Ponies. 3 ponies again in the snow, caught in movement. They're all coming at an angle towards the photographer, perhaps. It's a long lens. They're all sharp, which is very good. I like the way that you're catching detail in all the fur, right from the very front of the nose, right sharp all the way to the back of the tail. So they're all sharp. The background is non-distracting in any way. Perhaps it would have been a little better if this pony had been a little further forward. I think I would just have liked to, ideally, just a bit more separation between this pony or this horse and the back horse. I also felt it might have been helped just by taking an inch off the top, just cropping it a little, and just about an inch, just helped to focus down just a little bit tighter on the ponies. But a nice print, and Highland Ponies get 18 points. And this is called Pool. Obviously, you're in the Tug of War here, and the photographer has just caught the action very well. The figures that are pulling are all very sharp, and so is the team leader here standing beside them. So the author's done very well to select a depth of field that has kept everything sharp in the front, and yet the backgrounds in this situation are always distracting, and you have to either get them out of focus or darken them. And the author has got them out of focus, and they are darkened a little. Now, I don't know whether the depth of field has been selected so it's just perfect, or whether it's been done in processing. If it's been done post-processing, it's been done very well. But the front part of the rope is just losing detail, just a bit blurred. So the actual depth of field is picking off the chaps pulling on the rope. Good action shot. Perhaps let down by the fact that despite the out of focus and a little darker, the background is still a bit distracting. But good shot, and got 16 points. Now this is a wee cottage in Craigneal. I think Craigneal in Ireland. Not sure, but you have your cottage, which is presumably the main subject of the print, and you have your wall leading in from the left, a road from the right, a hill in the distance, sky and a tree down here. And I think the composition could have been improved by the author just moving a little to the right, so that the pillars of the wall, pillars at a gate I assume here, were just over to the left, so that the cottage would be more visible and not hidden by these pillars. The wall does act as a lead-in, and the road does too, but that could still be kept by just moving a bit more to the right and giving you a more open view of the cottage. The hill behind is very sharp, and there's details, contrast there, and you just, certainly in the print, you're losing a sense of depth. I think it would have been preferable to reduce the contrast in this area, just to try and give you a sense of depth. I think the author has tried to bring out detail in the sky and darken the sky. You maybe can't see it there, but in the print, I'm afraid that there's large patches of white behind this tree, so that, whereas the sky's been darkened, the patches of white have been missed out, so that the process and the manipulation has been is quite evident. So for that reason, the print falls down a bit, and a wee cottage in Craigneal scores 14 points. And this is called French tiles. Hard to tell French. Presumably it was taken in France, and I doubt these are. There's any other reason they're called French tiles. It's a pattern. You're looking at a pattern. That's why the author's taken the shot. And you've got a differing pattern with these tiles here, and you've got the square tiles top and bottom. I think it could be improved by just cropping the top part off, so that this part then would match the lower part. But in the end, you're just left with a view of tiles. They're not particularly attractive tiles. They're the artificial material that's been cut in a tile shape. So I think it just lacks interest. And in a competition like this, it's not going to score as well as other images. And French tiles gets 14 points for that reason. Bushy tail, lovely image of a squirrel and a bushy tail. I guess it's a grey squirrel, because I think if it was a brown squirrel, it would probably been produced in colour. So probably a grey squirrel, but you can't say for sure. And the squirrel's clutching something, he's nibbling at something, beautifully sharp all round the body, and the tail as well. Sitting in a field of grass, and it looks as though the grass has been cut at some point. It's fairly long, but has been cut. There's a little bit of darker area up in the corner here, and I suspect the darker area may have extended around this area, because looking at the print in detail, I just get the feeling that this area here has been cloned in. That's helped the image. I think perhaps it's a little unfortunate that the grass, the tones in the grass are similar to the tones in the squirrel. So the squirrel doesn't just stand out as much as it might have. And the author could try darkening around the edges, and that would just help the squirrel to jump out. But I like the image. Beautifully sharp, and bushy tail gets 18 points. Now this is called Pileation, and quite a dramatic image. It's just a pylon, but there is drama there, and I think the drama has been perhaps created by the author by darkening the sky round about the pylon, and leaving the lighter part directly behind it. So the sides have been darkened in the processing, and I think that really, really helps. There is a bit of light. The brightest part of the image is up in this area. Is it sun shining through? It's hard to tell. Looking at the print, there's a bit of, apart from the silhouette of the pylon, there's a little white lining all round the structure, which could just have been the sun reflecting off the metal and off the actual wires. But down at the bottom, there's also a white line just over the horizon. So that's certainly not the sun reflecting off the top of the horizon. And this has either been it may simply have been in the post-processing, tweaking contrast or changing different tones. You sometimes get artifact created just over a horizon, and that may explain that. Alternatively, the sky has been darkened all around this area, and that little strip has been missed out, and it's hard to tell. There's also, in fact, you can just see it in the projected image, the trees down the bottom, they also have just little white areas suggesting that the sky has been lighter when the shot was taken, and the processing has darkened everything round about that left these little areas. But nevertheless, I feel it's got drama. The author's done well, considering it's just a pile, and it scores 17 points. And that's the end of the monochrome images.